bit about yourself, and you can include the following information: how long you've lived in Raritan Township, if you currently have children or grandchildren in the district, why you are interested in serving on the board, and maybe what do you see as the top 3 issues our district faces in the upcoming years. And I do have a little timer on each slide just to help us all keep on time, because we are in this virtual format. It's hard to have a timekeeper and all these different positions because none of us can see each other. So hopefully that won't be too intrusive, and it'll give you a sense of how long you have. Okay, so without further ado, we will start. Pamela, we would like to start with you. Why don't you give us your opening statement?
Good evening, everyone, and let me thank the Raritan Democratic Committee for hosting this opportunity to speak and share my views. I've lived in Raritan Township for over 22 years, and my children went through the district. They are now young adults. A little bit about myself. I am a retired federal executive. I served for 3 different agencies over 38 years. And now that I have retired, I feel that I have some skills, talents, and time to give back to my community. I believe it's essential for children to have equitable access and opportunity for a sound education. And I believe that my background gives me a broad perspective. I've handled organizations about the size of the school district in the various administrative responsibilities of oversight, which includes budget, facilities management, contracting. I've also served in the capacity of pandemic planning when I worked with FEMA, and most recently in diversity and inclusion, or as the executive for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission.
Great.
So my 2 minutes were up, so I stopped.
You were almost done, but thank you. Thank you very much. So welcome to the forum, Pam. Okay, Melanie, tell us about yourself.
Good evening. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I really do appreciate it. I have to say hello to Mrs. Baker because I do remember you and your children through Copper Hill School, and I would love to hear about how well they're doing now. I've lived in Raritan Township for 17 years. We moved here for the school district, and I have 2 children that did go through the entire school district and are extremely successful. I was extremely proud of their learning and the high quality of education that we came here for. It really did pan out perfectly. My background and reason for being on the board is I am newly retired school nurse. I retired just recently, but not by choice. Just because of chemotherapy issues that are long lasting. So, but I have my bachelor's in school nursing. I received the New Jersey school nurse certification with the instructional certificate as well, so I could teach health if needed. I earned my master's in education with a concentration in school nursing. I was nationally certified as a school nurse as well. For the district, I was a CPR instructor for many, many years. In 2017, I was chosen by my peers in Copper Hill to be the Educational Services Professional. It's kind of like Teacher of the Year, but for non-teachers. I supported and worked with the district, both at the district level and the building level on their safety committees. the Wellness Committee, and the Helping Hands program. I attend meetings regularly for the last 10 years. I'm very aware of what's going on in the district. And I have a unique view, having worked in 2 school districts and seeing both sides of the equation. Thank you.
Thank you. And welcome to the panel, Melanie.
Thank you.
Okay. Murty, we'd like to hear a little bit about you.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Murty Varanasi. I am running for the board again. Last year I tried and I could not make it. So I thought I will give a try again. Recently I retired from Bayer Consumer Care and I am a PhD scientist, analytical scientist. My family moved from Connecticut to New Jersey 21 years ago. And both my kids went through the whole school system. The kids were 11 and 9. And now my daughter is a PharmD and my son is a financial analyst. They had the excellent excellent education through Flemington-Raritan School District. So now why I'm interested in serving the school district. Number one, I have the time. I recently retired from my company, and I have education, and I'm very passionate about good education for the school, for every student in the school. Every student deserves the best education, and I can use my skills. And also, as one of the mission statements for the school board, they want to have some minority and diversification. So hope. Right now, there is no diversification in our school board. I hope I can bring some diversity. And more importantly, right now, the school board is also overworked. I would strongly suggest that we could expand the school district to give more people an opportunity so that people like my neighbor, Tim and Val, work almost like 30, 40 hours a week for the school board. We do really appreciate for their hard work, but at the same time, the school board can take opportunity to have more qualified individuals and more people that are interested to work in the school board system. So to take advantage of their skill set and their knowledge. Thank you so much. And I hope I get an opportunity to serve in the board.
Great. Thank you, Murty. Thank you. Welcome to the panel. And finally, Scott, tell us about yourself and your interest on the board.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me to the forum. I appreciate it. I've lived in Raritan Township for 42 years. I went through the Flemington-Raritan School District, graduating in 97. I do have 2 children. My youngest son is in JP Case. My oldest is in Hunterdon Central. As far as serving on the board, I come from a very varied background. I'm an electrician by trade. I've been a fire marshal, currently still certified. I work for a large township in the construction department doing UCC inspections, which is New Jersey's construction code, doing fire and electrical inspections. So with all that and my IT background, I feel that, it gives me kind of a different point of view from most people, as I've, worked in schools. I've done security stuff for schools, dealt with fire alarms and deal with a lot of the current things that are being installed. As far as the top 3 issues, I would say that, that we really have to focus on the socio-emotional and mental health issues that the children and our staff are now facing on a daily basis. There's definitely more stress and ever-changing situations that, we obviously may not have experienced in our time in school, but the children now have to deal with. Parent-teacher communication seems to be a common issue that's come up on the superintendent advisory committees. And capital improvements and facility maintenance, we've shelled out quite a bit of money for mold remediation and things of that we need to have a solid plan in place to negate having to go through this all over again.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay, So we'll get started. Our first topic that we would like to get a little input from everyone on is COVID-19 preparedness. That is probably first and foremost in everyone's mind. So I guess the question we're going to ask is, do you feel like the planning and delivery of instruction during the pandemic has been adequate for the students and staffs? Do you see any shortcomings, or are you concerned about any shortcomings that will arise in student performance? And or what areas of the plan would you like to see improved? We're all thinking that we're going to be in this environment for a while, so there may be areas of improvement. So we'll start with Melanie, if you would like to take on that question.
Yes, the COVID-19 epidemic is overwhelming without a doubt. However, over the summer, I know that the district was working very hard at coming up with a plan, and the plan was really hitting a moving target because there was actually changes coming down from the CDC and the public health department, moment by moment, hour by hour. And it was really hard. And I really can't imagine what they went through to make this try to work. And they also are bound by certain rules and regulations that they have to follow in order to decrease the potential spread. So do I feel that there was any shortcomings? I think that some of the staff may not have been as tech savvy as we would like. And I think that was probably a very difficult change to go from being in a classroom using, the Apple TVs that they have and the smart boards and all that stuff to just working in front of a computer. But I know that the staff does get training and stuff like that, but you have to practice, and it was a very quick switch so far. I really do believe that there are always areas of improvement. So tech would be one of them. And hopefully our governor will open up our hours so that it doesn't impact the families as bad as it is with having half days and only in certain days of the week, and then remote instruction. Remote instruction is not the top priority, the best way to teach a child, without a doubt. You need to be there, you need to be on top of them, and it brings in the whole mental health portion of it too. So these kids are struggling. So I would like to see the teachers also get some more instruction on identifying mental health issues virtually, looking, facial expressions and what they're writing, and just putting a little more emphasis in that. And I think that will continue to improve because our district does look at everything that's going on, and they take it over and will reevaluate and change as necessary.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Okay, Murty.
Okay. To be honest, I don't have direct first-hand information or update from the schools, how the schools are operating. So I cannot honestly give a feedback or give an idea of how they are performing. But what I can learn from one of few of my friends who are school teachers, and from there I could sense that the school system is doing a pretty good job in terms of having a hybrid system or whatever system it's working. But still, it's offering a lot of challenges to the parents, especially for the young parents, and when especially they have both of them have to work. And from that standpoint, definitely local government and the state government should provide a lot of support and inspiration and as much as possible, so that the students can have the best education. And also they have to support the teachers in terms of how they can cope up with the school, teaching the children.
Okay, great, thank you. And Scott.
So as far as the COVID-19, you know, I do have a lot of friends who are teachers, and my son obviously is currently going through it. Surely nobody ever thought that we would be in this position, you know, teaching our students remotely. And I agree with Ms. Rosengarden that, you know, there really is nothing better than having the students in the classroom, you know, having that connection to the teachers. I can tell you from my youngest son, you know, who we joke around and say is the mayor, but he connects to his teachers, and he's losing that connection because he's not in direct personal contact with them. And it's not an educational thing as much as it is a connection and how he focuses with the teachers. But I don't think that you can deliver remote instruction in the same effective way. There seems to be some downtime. And given the circumstances that some parents have decided to go virtual, and then some went hybrid, and then some kind of switch back and forth, and this is an ever-changing situation, we're still in the learning stages of this. And I think that the resources that we have available to us they're doing the best that they can do given those circumstances. But we definitely have technology issues. You know, I'm fortunate enough to be an electrician, so I networked my house, but I'm sure everybody's having Wi-Fi issues and bandwidth issues. And the school is, you know, just a subject to that as well. They surely didn't plan to have all these kids remotely connecting to our servers and everything. So there's definitely a shortfall in how we're teaching people. But on the same respects, it's a learning curve, and it's true, it changes on a daily basis. There's no, you know, ringer here for what is going to be perfect for everybody.
Okay. Great, thank you. It's a little unsettling. I keep going from seeing people to not seeing people, so I apologize for that, this virtual world of ours. And Pamela, we'd like to hear from you on this issue.
Well, as my fellow candidates mentioned, this is an unprecedented event, COVID-19. And I actually commend the school board for putting together a workable plan, but we can't stop there. We have to make sure that we reconstitute post-pandemic outbreaks. But first and foremost, we have to be flexible in that plan and maintain a safe environment for the children, the staff, and the teachers. With regard to some concerns about the plan, I mean, with the virtual learning environment, basically the traditional classroom has expanded into homes. And whether those homes were prepared or equipped to handle that is still yet to be seen. So I am concerned about assuredness that the virtual learning environment is being worked as equitably as possible for all of the schools in the district. Because I think going with an average or an assumption that there's a certain level of home support and making that assumption may be flawed. So there has to be some mechanisms to get that proper feedback and adjust the plan, because it probably is not a one-size-fits-all scenario. The other thing that I am a little concerned about is how much COVID is changing the delivery of curriculum. And there are proposals going forward, which is, again, taking a universal approach to curriculum development, in particular math delivery. And I think that that may be something that we need to look at with regard to the infrastructure that you have at home and our students' learning profiles. Because online learning with a necessary course for success as they go forward, if they don't get fundamentals because it's being delivered in a way that doesn't sync with their learning mode, we're going to lose some of our students in that regard. So I would encourage that we work the plan, maintain a certain level of flexibility so that we ensure safety, but also include some assessments as to the effectiveness of the choices that have already been made and implemented, and proceed to make some adjustments going forward. Thank you. You're on mute, Kitty. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. Okay, you can see I'm like trying to drive and click and not doing a very good job of it, but we'll get through it. Thank you for your patience, everyone. So we'd like to move on to a different topic and think about, with an eye to maintaining top quality education and innovative programs, what class size do you think is reasonable? So we're really thinking about, and obviously you may, depending on the grade level, but what do you think is a reasonable class size? And I believe we're going to start with Murty on that question.
My question also to you is, are you asking the question under COVID environment?
Good question.
Because that makes a big difference in the number of children they can actively educate.
It certainly does. I would say in a non-COVID environment, so that we're not thinking as much about social distancing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's assume that life gets back to normal.
Okay. With an eye to maintaining top quality education. Okay. I would suggest maybe around 15 to 20 children in a classroom, maybe a reasonable number for the children, for the teachers to pay attention to the to make sure that the children are getting what the teachers are teaching, and at the same time they can get a feedback from the students, and in terms of maintaining the discipline, in terms of making sure that the kids are able to understand what the teachers are teaching. So
I'll ask a further question. Do you,
Yeah, sure.
do you see that changing for, for older students, thinking that we go through 8th grade, or would you like to see that across the board?
No, it doesn't fit across the board. Especially with younger children, my impression will be it would be better to have a little bit more one-on-one so that they can benefit much better. Whereas with the older children, you can maybe a few more extra children is all right.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and Scott, we'll go to you for the same question.
So I would agree. I believe the 15 to 20 is really the ultimate goal there, because the 20 gives you some flexibility. It allows you to have a lot of small group sessions. It definitely doesn't fit. I think the first graders and the kindergartners should be lower than lower on the scale, closer to the 15 size. Their needs are just more dependent upon interaction with the teacher versus the older students who, as they grow up in the class sizes and they grow in age, they start thinking for themselves. They start wanting to explore, and they still need the teacher's attention, but they rely upon it a lot less than, say, a first grader or a kindergartner who's just starting to learn the fundamentals of school and education. So, it would be nice if they would maintain the smaller levels, even at the older grades, between 15 and 20, because it does allow the teacher to spend more time with the kids. When you have larger classes, it's just physically impossible for a teacher to split their time that way.
Okay, great, thank you. And Pamela, what do you think about class sizes?
So again, I do agree with that 15 to 20, but I would preface it. I think as we return from a COVID virtual learning environment and we get to the optimum learning environment of classroom instruction, we're going to be doing some sort of makeup work because of the disconnects that the children have experienced with virtual learning. So closer to that 15, and I think it can be stratified by the age groups. The younger they are, I think the more access and one-on-one with a teacher and additional support staff in the classroom would help to reestablish those bonds that have been broken or have been somewhat interrupted with COVID. As you get into the older groups in the middle school age bracket, I think you do have some opportunity for some flexibility in content and curriculum delivery to maybe a larger group, and afford, I think, even going into almost like a collegiate scenario where you have opportunities for smaller one-on-one small groups after large lecturing on some of the course material as something to consider. Again, I hesitate going with a one-size-fits-all. We have to look at the characteristics of the learners and address our strategies to fit their needs. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Melanie, what are your thoughts about class size?
Well, I have to agree with with everyone else, because I've seen the classrooms when they are full and how difficult it is to be a teacher. I do not know how they do it. And I differentiate amongst all the different learning levels and needs. I think it's just absolutely amazing. However, I do strongly agree with the smaller class size, the 15 to 28, more like 15 to 18 max in the kindergarten, first grade. But we also have to realize that when they do a class size and they give the teacher, say they had 15 students, that does not take into account special needs students that filter in throughout the day. Special needs students that do come in typically will have an aide with them specifically, but they could be watching 3 or 4 children that come into that classroom. So you went from 15 to 19 kids, or if you were, started at 20, then you're up to 25 for a period of time. So they're not necessarily with the class all day, but it depends. I think as the students get older, you can definitely squeak it up a notch or two, but I truly agree with Mrs. Baker regarding that there's going to be a loss due to virtual teaching, that we're going to have to really work with these children, all of them across the board, to get them up to speed again. But I do know that we can do that. The other thing that they were starting to try a couple of years ago is team teaching. So team teaching is when you have 2 teachers in the classroom and you can actually have a couple more students, like a 20 classroom, and then you each are sharing that divide and working with the kids. But we also have to be financially aware of how much we're spending. And so if we're putting classrooms down at 15, which is wonderful, you're adding a lot of teachers and you might not have enough class space in that building. So those are some of my ideas.
Great, thank you. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much. Okay. Some of you actually brought this up, so this is a good question to get further feedback on. What role do you believe that the Board of Education should have in addressing social issues as they relate to education and the social emotional learning of our students? So addressing what role does the board have in addressing social issues and the social and emotional learning of our students? And so Scott, I'd like to start with you on that question.
Sure. You know, the Board of Education is responsible for crafting the policies and the curriculums of the school and making sure that, you know, the school is running that way that it's supposed to in the most efficient way. And it's no different for social emotional issues pertaining to our students and even our staff. You know, we should be crafting a policy that is supportive. These students and staff members face things that, quite honestly, when I went to school, were never a thing. And things are very different for them, and they take things, you know, very much to heart. But they are, you know, we're all people, and as humans, as much as we may say that we may not want to see people and we love being away from people, it's in our innate ability and desire to have those relationships. So making sure that we craft policies that encourage our students to communicate, encourage our staff to communicate, understand that there's no reason to not ask for help. It doesn't put you in any kind of different light, that it's okay if you need somebody to talk to, and providing them with the resources that we have available. We have some great partnerships with therapists from I believe it's the Hunterdon Medical Center group. And it's a resource that honestly, I don't think is being used as much as it is or should be. And our guidance counselors, unfortunately, are very much tied to having to deal with the day-to-day activities of scheduling and things of that nature. So we're kind of moving away from guidance counselors providing that social emotional aspect and support, and now we need to bring it back and use the resources we have available to provide that.
Great, thank you. I will turn it over to you, Pam, and get your feedback on this issue.
My view of the responsibility of the school board is very similar to the role I played in my previous appointment as the EEO director and diversity officer for a federal agency, where you had to have some level of oversight of whatever policies are put into place. These are definitely more challenging times for children, and the access to social networks and media exposed them to things that, as even my children growing up, did not have those kind of that kind of access. And it's forcing households to have conversations or to work that through. So I think we would as a board want to provide guidance and policy that carried out a level of ensuring equity and address some of the social and emotional aspects that all the children in the district are probably going through, where we can partner with some of our other community groups, I think is a vehicle. When I talked about assessing the readiness for virtual learning in households, there may be opportunities there to leverage some of our community-based organizations as well, instead of just relying on the resources of the district. Also pursuing various grants to create a resource stream. But it is something that the district can't turn a blind eye to. It is our reality. And I feel at the K-8 level, it needs to be addressed robustly so that things don't escalate into some of the challenges that we're seeing at the high school level now. And that to me is, if we start at the younger age and address it, you're not going to have, or at least you can preempt some of that discord. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Melanie.
Well, I would like to piggyback off of Mrs. Baker's last statement about the elementary needing that support. As working in Copper Hill School for almost my whole career here, the elementary schools only have one guidance counselor, and they are often pulled away from working with the students because of HIB investigations that take days and hours and such. We also deal with, the two of us would work back and forth trying to support children that are coming in for stomach aches that are actually related to something else going on in their lives. Mental health is a huge issue that we have to work on. So making policies, educating our teachers, educating our parents. I can't tell you how many times we've brought up concerns to parents and they don't want to hear it because it's frightening. Or they feel that they're not parenting correctly, and that's not what it's about. We really have a job to do. We can't fix everything in the school system, but we can definitely reach out and work with our local organizations. So I would actually like to see more guidance counselors at the elementary levels because it just seems very unfair, or a new balance to maybe not following the HIB so much or doing stuff like that, because then they're missing their second, it's called second step, where they interact with each classroom and teach them new skills on how to talk to other students and work out conflict and stuff like that. And that's a problem we have right now. Our kids don't know how to deal with conflict because an adult's always there quickly to, to stop it, and, not like when we were younger. But again, we also have to realize that $11 million was cut this year by Governor Murty for mental health. And that's really sad. But, when we go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, just having a safe place, food, home, your basis, the teachers end up taking care of those basic needs every day before they can get to the higher level. So it's a lot on these teachers. It really is.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. And Murty, same question. How would you, what are your thoughts on this?
I agree with all the input from all the other members, and to add to what Melanie was explaining, definitely it plays a big role in how the parents and the community work together, parents, community, and the school board work together in terms of bringing up the issues, if they have any social issues, and so that the school board can make the policies that are appropriate to help the students with the appropriate guidance counselors. And I would say that, yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Have anything else to add? You're good?
No.
Okay, thank you. Our next topic is just your thoughts, is how important are athletic and fine art programs to the overall success of the educational process. As time has passed over the years, we have seen, in my opinion, a decrease in emphasis on athletics and fine arts to try to bring even more academics into play. So just interested to know what your thoughts are on those two areas to the overall success of our students. And I believe we are going to start with Pam for that question. Pamela.
Okay. I'm a child of a secondary education teacher in music. So I am a strong advocate of arts education. And it almost ties back to our discussion on the previous question when we talk about social emotional. There's a link there with regard to arts education and even athletics, and how it creates some of those socialization bonds that kids need that doesn't come out of sort of the traditional educational curriculum. Yes, I know those programs tend to get either reduced or cut because of the economics involved. But I think there's opportunities to look at, again, creative ways to support and have some semblance of arts education and sustain it at all levels of based on, again, a stratified approach, and also support the athletics. I mean, this area has a very robust sort of rec league and those kind of outside of the school opportunities. And, you know, we're a community, so where we can leverage that and offset some of the cost and expense that the schools are absorbing in that regard, I think there's some opportunities there.
Great. Thank you. Melanie, what are your thoughts on athletics and fine arts?
I completely agree that fine arts and athletics are a huge part of a healthy, well-rounded student. It's not just book learning, it's learning how to work together as a team, no matter whether you're on an orchestra or an athletic team. My son went athletic, my daughter was fine arts, and it was just amazing. And there's a lot of research that it does improve students' educational learning. So it's really a very fascinating way to make themselves feel better and work with other students. And it helps a lot with their social emotional being. We have a great fine arts program, from learning the guitar to the violin, the band and everything. And then our athletic department has a very good program at the JP Case level. But other than that, it's recreational and travel for the other children, but you know, they can be in all of it. Fine arts was so important for my daughter because she learned how to play the violin, and she had to find a college that actually allowed her to continue that while she was in college. And she did, and it was the best thing for her because it's really a very, it decreases her mental stress while she was learning, and it just really made it a good thing for her. So we do have to find creative ways of maintaining that. And I would like to see more at the lower levels because children must play. That's how they learn, especially the younger they are. They need time outside to play and be healthy and happy overall. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And sorry, Murty, we're on to you.
Yes, I agree that we should have a robust athletic and fine arts program in the schools. Part of the reason is for a complete fulfillment of good education, you need to be mentally and physically alert and be active all the time. And in fact, as far as the fine art is concerned, both my children were very involved with the violin programs at school, and they benefited a lot from them. And in addition to that, my daughter was when she was in school, she was doing Bharatanatyam dance program, and she did Arangetram, like a full stage program after learning for 7 years. These kind of fine arts programs are really, really helpful in terms of helping them to be very independent, very cohesive, and they can concentrate and do much better, perform much better as they grow up in terms of the discipline, and it helped them to be good citizens. So in other words, I would strongly suggest that we need to have a good athletic and fine arts program in the school for the children to use their mental and physical activities to bring their successful education.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Scott.
I would say that the athletics and the fine art are definitely a very important process. You know, the athletics, besides the obvious health benefits, you know, they teach students how to work together in a group and cooperate and form bonds and close-knit relationships. And, you know, it's nice when you win, and it's nice to celebrate when you win. And it's just as equally as important to celebrate that, you know, yes, you lost, but hey, you know, we did it together, and we can improve on things of that nature. With the fine arts, you know, I completely agree with everyone else. It's part of a very well balanced program. My youngest son has ADHD, and you know, he liked to participate in soccer, and my oldest liked to participate in soccer, and my youngest has gotten into guitar at Riffus and then at JP Case. And you know, my oldest was a big arts lover. And I find that, you know, with both of my boys having IEPs, that it provides them an outlet that is outside of the traditional learning program, that they can sit down and they can blow off steam or run around to some excess energy, or quite honestly just lose themselves in what they're doing at the moment, you know, whether it be creating some kind of artistic thing or playing the guitar or doing something of that nature. And it's good sometimes to just kind of lose yourself to the moment and enjoy something like that.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone.
Kitty, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, you can.
Can I just add one little thing?
Absolutely.
Okay. Regarding the athletics, I would love to see a little bit of a change in the gym program that we have at school. They're mandated to do certain classes. However, I see the kids who try to get out of gym class every single day. So you have kids that are truly very athletic and they love and they'll play any game that they're allowed to. But then we have some of them that are not doing that. And I would love to see them come up with a different mechanism to bring them into physical activity in a different level, whether it's a Zumba class or some yoga to decrease stress and stuff like that. I would love to look into something like that. That's all.
Great. Thank you. Did any other candidate want to add into that question? Great. Okay. Thank you so much. We're moving into the topic that nobody likes to talk about when we're talking about budget and fiscal responsibility. So our first question in this area is, how do you balance fiscal responsibility to the taxpayer while maintaining an educational integrity, staff retention, and infrastructure maintenance, which are three big topics on the budget? And I believe we're starting with Melanie for this question.
Okay. Well, as we all know, we had a $42 million referendum recently, and that is very separate, and that's very specific to infrastructure of our buildings. The roofs being done, new electricity, AC, putting in dehumidifiers so we don't get mold again, I pray. We also have come into a energy savings improvement plan with the company Ameresco to increase our energy efficiency and renewable energy. So by entering into this budget neutral project over the next 15 years, we should expect to save approximately $4.8 million. Now, however, that was done prior to the AC being entered into the picture. But it's a way to do it. So I do know that we changed our budgeting about 5 years ago to a zero-based budget, and that's working. We have a ton of shared services, transportation, purchasing, maintenance. We share bids with the high school and the SALT from Raritan Township. We work with the library, the AVA Commission, and security. We also outsource the Class 3 officers with the borough and the township. So it's not an easy job. Things increase, taxes are going to increase based on cost of living, but we're hoping that we can decrease what we need. But at the same time, we have to realize that the state only the government only gives us 9% of our budget, where it used to be much larger. So we really need to start going after the state and the government, trying to help support us better and not just our taxpayers. It's a really tough job, without a doubt.
Great, thank you. Okay, Murty, what are your thoughts with balancing fiscal responsibility to the taxpayer while maintaining programs?
I mean, the Board of Ed is kind of eyes and ears of the community and the management. So it looks like I attended few of the board meetings, and based on what I learned from them, seems like the board is doing a pretty decent job in overseeing the programs that are promised to be done for the betterment of the school system infrastructure, and at the same time hiring very qualified individuals, superintendent, and then having a good curriculum and educational integrity of the school system. It looks like the school board is doing a pretty good job at this point. And then because they have a fiscal responsibility for the taxpayers, and our taxpayers are pretty smart in terms of passing the referendum last year to help with the infrastructure of the school system.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And Scott?
So I kind of figured there would be eventually a loaded question kind of like this. It is definitely a tough one. And I do agree. I do believe our board is working hard to keep this, you know, to the lowest amount that it can be. But when you look at things like these, you know, we have a very demanding district. You know, we expect a high educational quality. We provide a high educational quality. You know, our staff does a lot of training throughout the school district, and, you know, a lot of our problems, unfortunately, were predecessor problems. You know, infrastructure not being maintained is something that should have been done from many superintendents ago all the way through. And unfortunately that, you know, when you have people that retire and things go by the wayside and it's not really looked at, and we have to take money from infrastructure to make sure that we're providing the resources that we need for the classrooms, it does get tough. And I think, you know, when you look at stuff like this from like a municipality standpoint, you know, sharing services is one of the best things you can do to reduce cost. Finding alternative methods of bringing in additional money. You know, we're very fortunate to have a very strong PTA and PTO, and, you know, we have a lot of support from our community, but there's got to be opportunities that we can look into for grants or partnering with larger corporations who do like a shared educational program. You know, where you can bring elements in and people that can, you know, have resources of organizations that have a lot more, you know, liquid cash at their disposal that maybe, you know, they can partner with to provide computers and things of that nature to try to do the best that we can to find alternate sources with the unknowns of how New Jersey is going to, you know, continue with their budget and their funding, you know, options.
Great. Okay, thank you. And Pamela?
So a lot of good ideas have already been offered. I do have a lot of experience as far as being a budget officer for an organization where through my entire federal career, I was a steward of the taxpayer. So I have ingrained in me that level of sensitivity, but also recognizing that we have to ensure that we provide quality service, which is educating our children. The whole aspect of zero-based budgeting, biting the bullet and, you know, pursuing the capital investments or actual recovery because of the years of neglect is a good thing. And it's so important as we are in the safety concerns of returning to the buildings with COVID. I don't think we would have had a successful plan if some of those investments weren't already addressed. But going forward, the continuation of shared services, identifying grant opportunities, partnering with other agencies, and the support of the community is a mechanism to offset some of these costs, or offset the expenses in the budget to keep our primary objective of educating our children. It's going to require a certain level of creativity. It's going to require research. I think there's some opportunities, as Scott mentioned, with regard to partnering and grant opportunities, particularly in some of the innovations on curriculum delivery that I think a post-COVID environment is going to require. I think they're already, I mean, that's one of the issues, or what they were looking at with the math curriculum. It's not to say that there may be some other opportunities in some of the other disciplines that could be pursued. So, but it is a balancing act. And I'm well aware and have extensive experience in walking that tightrope.
Great. Thank you so much, candidates. I have another budget question. So it may be somewhat similar, but you might it might afford you an opportunity when thinking about cost savings to the community. What areas of the budget do you think could affect a cost savings? So is there any particular thing or area of the budget that you're seeing now that the district could potentially improve upon a particular area? So we'll start with you, Murty, on that question.
It's a tough question to answer, because there are not many areas that it's very difficult to cost cut important programs. But at the same time, under the COVID environment or any environment, they need to prioritize what are the essential services that needs to be taken care of, and prioritization is the only way that you can where you can cut the programs and where you have to spend on the programs. So I don't have a very good idea of which programs can be cut to save the costs at this point. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Scott.
So I did look over the budget that was proposed, and one of the things that honestly I think that we probably need to explore from the budget aspect is truly the amount of money that we spend when we have to send somebody out of district for a service, whether it be for a learning disability or a physical disability or whatever it may be that is generating us sourcing these from outside of the district, and trying to see if there's a way of course, adding another staff member or adding, more support staff is always a cost increase. But it seems to me that, while we have to provide these services, and, I understand the reasoning for them, that there's got to be a way that we can look to bring more of that stuff in-house. We're a very active school district. We try to engage with people. We always make sure that we try to offer the best services that we possibly can. And, one of the things that might actually turn around and benefit it is if you can bring these into the school district, now that's a service we can provide to another school district. My oldest son, happened to go through the Wilson reading program, which is not really something that's offered. It's actually being stripped out of Central's curriculum, but he started it in Flemington-Raritan, and it was a good program for somebody who was dyslexic. And it's tough. There's not a lot of teachers that teach that, but if you can provide services in-house, it's still cheaper than having to send the students out to other places to have to, we have to pay for busing, insurance, and everything else that goes along with it. And it just, is a bolster to the district that, look, this is what we're doing for our students, and it's in-house.
Great. Thank you. And Pamela.
Okay. So I've had a chance to look at the budget, and my background has always been, is there a better way, looking at the larger expense items, is there opportunity or scenarios that we can explore that we can work on trimming that? And I know that payroll, personnel costs are usually the highest, and it's the teachers, but we want to make sure that we're still bringing quality teachers and supporting them in the school. But there may be not so much looking at individual salaries, but the complement of staffing as an option. I'll leave it at that.
What do you mean by the complement? If I'm not familiar with the complement.
Well, where you're looking at the level of their qualifications, their designation of instruction, whether or not you complement with aides or more instructional, as a learning environment, not just certified
Okay.
teachers.
Okay.
As complementary.
Okay, great, thank you. And we are on to, Melanie.
I have to agree with Mr. Williamson on the special education costs. When I first was hired for this district back in 2003, I went into the meeting right after a family who had traveled from Colorado to enroll their child in the autistic program because it was that well known. We kept that recognition for many years. And then a couple of years ago with the different administrations, things changed. And a lot of things got pushed out of our district, which we had a very large number of students out of district. And we can bring that back. We can totally bring it back. Our teachers are phenomenal. We just have to give them the education, bring it back to what's going on, because the cost of tuition, transportation, and the summer ESY program plus transportation is enormous. So a couple of years ago, the average child was like, to educate was like, it used to be $10,000 to $11,000. It's up over $30,000 per child. And special education students can easily be $100,000 per child. And it's not that they don't need that, because they truly do, but we can totally bring it back and also offer tuition students to come to our district as well. But other areas that I would like to see us save would be the healthcare. I know that they've been flipping that around for the last several years, trying to find the best price for stuff without, changing their healthcare level. And healthcare is extremely high. Teachers that we have now, you have to be highly qualified in order to have that position, especially in the middle school grades, I believe 6th through 8th and above. You must be certified in that area. So we do have great teachers, and we have to keep bringing more teachers into the district with this high quality. And at the same time, our salaries are lower than most of the people in the area. So it's a really tough call on that, because you really don't want to see them leave and have to start all over again when we have such great teachers. Thank you.
Our last budgeting question is sort of a timely, quick one, in that how do you think COVID-19 will or should impact our future budgets? There is some funding coming through, but we still, it probably will still impact your existing budget. And the question is, what should be done for the future in preparation for COVID-19 or the next pandemic, if you will, that comes along. So do you think COVID-19 will or should impact future budgets? And I believe we're starting with Scott on that question.
So I think with the COVID-19, unfortunately, one of the impacts I think you're going to see is the realization of what the true cost was. It's going to be a multi-year thing, because unfortunately, as we go forward this year, we're going to incur costs that were never planned or desired. And funding, yes, it's there, but I've dealt with it with the fire department, and, you know, on municipal levels, you know, sometimes getting funding from government sources or reimbursements for government sources doesn't always flow the way that it should be, or doesn't end up being exactly what you had hoped or had, you know, planned for it to be. So, you know, much like in the municipal world right now, it's kind of a hold your breath and wait kind of thing, where we're looking at things, we're seeing things. You can see what we've immediately spent, but the true impact is not going to be felt, unfortunately, until next year. But I think going forward that, you know, this is something that we're going to have to unfortunately account for. We're going to have to come up with some sort of a line item that provides I don't want to say a stockpile, but provides provisions so that should something like this happen, you know, this is an immediate turnaround. We have supplies that we need, and we have resources available that we can go to and say, hey, listen, I need 10,000 more gloves, or I need 50 masks, or whatever the requirement may be for whatever, honestly, the next pandemic could be. I would hope to think that this is hopefully the first and last time we ever see this, but realistically, you know, I'm sure it's not going to be. So it's something that we're going to have to plan for. And it's not like you can pick something out of the air and say tomorrow that it's going to be this. It's just the reality of how we go forward, and planning for the future that this is a possibility is the best that we can do.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Pamela, what are your thoughts on whether we should, if COVID-19 will or should impact future budgets?
So for me, I believe it's a given that COVID-19 is a game changer going forward, and we're going to feel the effects from here on out. So what are the two areas in addition to the immediate safety issues with regard to masks and sanitizers and things like that? I think one of the areas that we could pursue some offsetting and realize some economies in our operations is seeking grants with regard to technology investment and staff development, and doing research in those areas where they're pursuing, we could prototype some innovations in that regard, and look at those as opportunities to expand and broaden our curriculum delivery. So.
Great. Thank you. And Melanie.
Well, COVID-19 has really taken us for a loop, without a doubt, the entire country. But we're also still recuperating from our mold issue that we had a couple of years ago, which was unexpected. Insurance did not pay out like we had expected to resupply us with what that cost us. But some of that equipment that we use, the HEPA filter scrubbers, air scrubbers, they can be used now in the COVID. So being able to keep that that equipment working correctly and well maintained so it continues future would be fantastic. But we're going to have to become creative with budgeting for this because you just don't know. It's a shot in the dark, basically, for how much you were going to need. But we have to look at our grants. Our school, I don't believe, is doing enough with grants. I did ask if we have anybody who's dedicated to just grant searching, because there's a lot of different things from the feds out there that I just saw, like the top 13. And we do work for most of those, but not all of them. And I think that's a way that we could get money to help support these budgets. But it's also, we have to be careful with how much we have in our bank. We can't go over a 2% cap, and there's a lot of logistics with how much money we can have in storage or, you know, in the savings account for that rainy day, unlike what we can do at home. So it's going to take some creativity, but it will definitely impact us, and we definitely need to do it.
Great. Thank you,
you.
Melanie. And Murty, same question for you, sir.
This COVID-19 is a real surprise and a shocker for everybody. And this is putting a lot of stress and it will have a lot of impact on the future budgets. So one of the ways that they can address that, maybe seeking grants, public grants, or any support from the federal and state level additional grants, because as it is, the schools must be the hands tied with the limited budget to support the good education and all the existing programs. And in addition to that, COVID-19 is a surprise, and it will require a lot of infrastructure and additional IT and health, a lot of provisions and health and safety of the school children so a lot of expenses will be. So one of the ways to address this will be to seek grants and ask for more support from the federal and state level. So they need to be innovative, even though they have some budgets, but unfortunately, in my opinion, that may not be enough to support the post-COVID budgets.
Great. Thank you. And so candidates, we are to our last question for the evening. And this question, I think someone had mentioned earlier, this is taken off of the school climate survey from 2019. And I felt personally, when I looked at the survey, that things were in pretty good shape. But there were some concerns about communication. That seemed to be an area between communication between the Administration Board of Education to the staff and communication between administration and Board of Education to the parents. So looking through that lens, what are your thoughts or ideas on how to improve communication so that it is efficient, yet recognizes the accomplishments of our students and our staff in a meaningful way? And we're going to start that question with Pamela.
Okay. This is an area that I'm not very versed in as far as the challenges or the deficiencies that they've had. So I have engaged with the access that the current board provides in a virtual environment. I'm aware of the different communications and the web pages that are being utilized, but again, communication, often accurate and timely, are the three things that make it effective. So there's always opportunities to use, particularly in today's world, multiple media opportunities to improve the communications if there's a deficiency. And it sounds like from that survey that there is one, and working on that is something that the board needs to take into consideration going forward. I think COVID created an environment necessitating clear, timely, and accurate communication despite the uncertainties that were surrounding, meaning it was, as I think one of the other candidates said, it was a continually moving target. But they're working the plan and they're making progress. But you also want to make sure that we have contingency and backup mechanisms. And again, it talks to, in part, some of the technology challenges that were discovered in some of the early, or as some of the virtual environments were yielding. So that's what I would offer, is I probably would need a little more insights there, but that would be a start. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Melanie, what are your thoughts in this area?
I honestly think that it is improving since this survey, from the feedback that I'm hearing from parents and some staff, which is a good thing. I do know that this is a board goal to have improved, a current goal to improve the communication and being transparent. The hard part is that there's sometimes they haven't finalized some things, so you can't share it until it's approved. So sometimes that could be a little bit difficult. And the way that the Board of Education works is that you work in committees and you kind of have your scuffle and your discussions about, you know, your different opinions of that. And then you come together as a consensus, and then you bring it back to the full board. And then it gets put on the agenda, and then we get to the meeting day. And that's, you know, when the agenda goes out, that's when a lot of families and parents get upset because there's something that they were unexpecting. But up until that point, you can't really share some of that information because it may be personal or budgetary, and they just can't do it at that point. So when you get to your board meeting and you have something on the agenda, the whole board as a team has come up with a plan, and they're now sharing it with the public, and the public has a chance to voice their opinions. And I kind of feel that this is almost backwards. I almost feel like that it should be another week involved so that they can absorb it and they can hear it and we can hear their opinions. But you're never going to please everybody, unfortunately, as much as everybody wants to do the best that they can. But using our social media, and we also need to work on reaching out to our English second learners, English second learners and their families, because it's proven that a lot of them don't read their own language. So they can turn our computer, their screen, into their language. But if they're not proficient in reading their own language, then it becomes a more difficult scenario. And how do you get to them? So I do know that a lot of our Spanish teachers do talk with the community a lot. But I think that we should have more translators that are available in all buildings every day, just for that, because it is a really difficult thing. So we are definitely improving by doing these different things, but there's definitely room for improvement.
Okay, thank you. And Murty, same question. What are some ideas that you might have in the areas of communication?
I mean, they can easily address by what are the areas of deficiencies they can address by through newsletters or any like frequently answered questions from the community. Definitely, they need to have an open communication and at the same time transparency between the board and the community. And one of the ways that they can do is by some newsletters, through newsletters or any social media. They can communicate with frequently asked questions and frequently asked where they have issues, the community has issues with the board.
Okay, thank you. And Scott.
So I was fortunate enough to have served on the Superintendent's Advisory Committee that actually dealt with this particular question at hand. It was very interesting to see the school climate survey, the feedback from parents, from staff, from administration. But what was actually kind of interesting to find out is not so much the parental side of it, because as parents, we all talk, social media is a quick outlet, information's, right there for everybody to use. But it's that, I believe Mr. McKay had alluded to it earlier today, is that not everybody uses technology. We're fortunate. Our superintendent uses Twitter, uses Facebook. Our Board of Education is there. The Educational Association is on there. We have Genesis. We have Virtual Backpack. You can find a plethora of information going on at any one of the given schools. And what was interesting to come out of the whole thing was yes, there are going to be parents who are not going to use the the virtual options or the electronic options, because we're all very busy at this point in our life. We're all working and doing multiple things. But it's more so that if we teach the people that it's there were a lot of people that hadn't logged into Genesis, or had not even honestly emailed or reached out to a teacher. And there was a general disconnect between how much time a teacher truly has in the classroom to reach out to parents on an individual level and say, hey, there's a problem here, that it's not always responsive from the parental end of it. And it was very eye-opening, but it appears that Dr. McGann really kind of took that to heart, and was trying to work on those issues and provide different solutions and make things more transparent, from the outcome of the meeting that we had.
Great. Okay. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to the end of the forum. I truly appreciate having the opportunity today to talk with all of you. It was certainly my pleasure. And I thank you for your attendance today. John, is there anything you wanted to add in?
I wanted to express my thanks to. It was all short notice, and I appreciate you all came. You have some good ideas, and I got some good ideas from your good ideas. So we'll go from there. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you
Yes,
so
thank
much.
you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Job as moderator, so thank you, Kitty.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kitty, you did a good job.
Thank you.
Very good job.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night. Good night.
Good night now.
Thank you. Good night.
Normally we'd have cookies now, but we don't have
I
cookies.
know. I know.